this is an East Anglian Coastal Network IET presentation. We hope that this presentation will be the first of a series for our local Green Forum, where we want to bring people together to share expertise on what it means to get to net zero collectively and personally. And just to draw to your attention, there will be a subsequent event on the 13th of September at BT's Adastral Park in the University of Suffolk Digitech, which will be a colloquium where we'll have panelists, posters, and where we will have visits also to the University of Suffolk Eco House. Without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, Dr. Phil Wallace. Phil's talk today is entitled Getting Off Gas. Phil is a retired soil scientist, and he decided to replace his old gas central heating system, get solar panels and batteries, and maximize his use of EV to reduce his CO2 footprint. He's 3 years of data from his air source heat pump. He aims to tell us all about the implications for CO2, for home energy management, and for his costs. So without further ado, over to you, and thank you very much for bearing with us, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my talk about my journey to stop using gas at home and to reduce my carbon footprint. I will describe the changes I've made to my energy supply and heating systems, the costs involved, and the data I've gathered on energy use over the last 3 years. I've lived in the house that I'm going to describe and talk about systems at Martlesham Heath in Suffolk for over 30 years. The house was built in 1983 and I bought it in 1992. The house is fully insulated over the last 30 years. I've increased the loft insulation, although it could probably still do with some more. I've got cavity wall insulation. I've got double glazed windows and doors. So insulation is the first thing you should do to your house. I've also changed to an electric vehicle, which my wife and I share. Plus we have another standard vehicle for longer journeys at the moment. I had fitted a Zappi charger because the energy charging system 4 years ago wasn't brilliant. And the Zappi charger allows me to charge from my solar panels. My first solar panels went in October 2019, and they are facing roughly east, just south of east. I also had smart meters fitted for electricity and gas in December of that year. I then had additional solar panels fitted on the west side of the house, and this was coupled to a battery system in October 2020. I then had the air source heat pump fitted in December 2020, and finally an induction hob in 2021. And at that point, I was able to completely disconnect from the gas. So here you can see a picture of the smart meter for the electricity system. And I also had to upgrade my fuse to 100 amp because of my Zappi charger. And that was done by the network provider. Here's a picture of my solar panels facing just south of east. I've got 14 panels on this roof. It's quite a steep pitch to the roof, and it can deliver 4.6 kilowatt hours at peak. I have a Solis inverter, and the total cost for this system was just under £6,000. The original estimate was that I would use 60% of the energy generated, and at the price of electricity then at 15 pence per kilowatt hour, it would take about 11 years to pay back. However, electricity prices have been rising, and also I believe my utilization has been improving because of my batteries in later times. So my payback should be earlier, and I'll cover that a bit later. So my original estimate was I'd generate 3,500 kilowatt hours per year. And in the first year, first 12 months, I actually generated 4,000. So it was pretty good. But you'll remember in April 2020 and May 2020, it was a very warm, sunny spring. So you can see that on the line above the blue line. There's a lot of generation in those months. I then revised my estimate upwards, and my generation for the next calendar year was just underneath, just 3,670 kilowatt hours. And it didn't quite, maybe it was a slightly cloudier summer. But the following year, I was actually over the 4,000. And you can see it was pretty well matching my prediction. So I was quite pleased with that. I then fitted the solar panels on the west side of the house, and I went for 12 panels, generating 4 kilowatt hours at peak times. And I have a Solax inverter plus the 12.6 kilowatt hour batteries. And you can see the battery management system on top of one of the batteries there. And there are 2 batteries, a third could be fitted. I believe a battery is very important if you've got solar plus air source heat pump. You need to have full management of your power, because you can couple that with peak, off-peak cheap electricity. And this all makes the economics work when I'm changing from gas to electric heating. So the west-facing panels, the estimate was just over 2,500 kilowatt hours per year, and I pretty well matched that. And in year 2, it was just above that. So my estimates are pretty accurate. I'm quite pleased. And then if we look at the total systems now, when I've had the 2 systems running together, I estimate to use about to generate about 6,500 kilowatt hours. In 2021, I was just below it, but in 2022, I was just above it. So all in all, I think the estimates are pretty good. And month by month, it's working out to be fairly accurate. So a bit about the old gas system. It was a very old gas boiler, which I've had, or was probably installed as per original. It was obviously efficient, being so old, and it was due for replacement. Obviously, it was burning gas is emitting carbon. But I also found that because the gas central heating comes through with a lot of hot water through the radiators, you get a burst of hot air coming off the radiators. It just goes straight to the ceiling. You have the top half of the room is hot, and the lower half, your feet, remain cold. So it was never just right. It was also controlled by a fixed thermostat in the hall, which was the coldest point of the house, and it wasn't really compensating for the changes within the house. So the house is a 4 or 5 bedroomed detached house with a floor area of 170 square meters. The energy performance certificate gave the following data. So for heating, I'd use just over 17,000 kilowatt hours per year, and for hot water, just over 4,000 kilowatt hours per year, giving a total of 21,500 kilowatt hours per year, plus also some gas which will be used for cooking. And then on top of that, there's some electricity for the house itself. If you look at my gas, this is for the 11 months just before the air source heat pump was fitted. This shows the amount of gas in kilowatt hours used per month. And obviously in the summer, it's only cooking, but in the winter, it's heating the house and the hot water. So I'll come back to this graph compared with the air source heat pump in a minute. The air source heat pump itself, it was sized at 8.5 kilowatt hours output. and it cost £14,500. That included the air source heat pump, a new hot water tank, and 6 new radiators. But it did use the existing pipework for the radiators. I had to have new radiators because the whole air source heat pump system operates on a cooler temperature, so the radiators have to be suitably sized to get the energy, the heat into the house. I was lucky that I could make use of the Renewables Heat Initiative subsidy, and that is going to repay me £11,500 over 7 years. That subsidy is no longer available. It's a flat £5,000 now. The air source heat pump took a week to install, although the hot water was functional from day one. So they could put the hot water tank in, connect that up, so we could still have hot water and showers in the house. However, there was no heating for the rest of the week, and that was a bit chilly. So December isn't the ideal time to get an air source heat pump fitted. One benefit is that I've now got a mobile thermostat. So if I'm finding that I'm sitting in the kitchen and it's getting a bit warm, I can just move the thermostat into the kitchen area and the air source heat pump will go off. And then when I want to move around the house again, I can move the thermostat back to the cooler points. The hot water system I've got coming on at night. The air source heat pump can't heat the hot water and the central heating at the same time. So generally the central heating is off overnight. Therefore, we'll just put the hot water on. So the benefit of that is I've got off-peak electricity tariff in the middle of the night. And so it's cheaper to run. And in the summer, then I'm using my batteries and using the energy from the batteries that I've stored from the solar in the day. So hot water heating is becoming very cheap. Here's a picture on the left of the old tank. It didn't have an immersion heater. This is showing it with the cladding removed. And on the right is the new hot water tank. It's a pressurized system, so the shower is much better pressure. I had to actually reduce the pressure so it wasn't too much and wasting too much water. But I'm very pleased with the pressurized system. In the loft, I've got a buffer tank. This allows the heating system to respond more quickly because there's already a reservoir of hot water. And not all air source heat pump systems have a buffer tank, and so I don't quite know I think there is a benefit, but whether there is financially is something we don't know yet. But the cold water tank was removed, and on the right you can just see some of the pipe work, which is all insulated up in the loft. The air source heat pump itself, it's very quiet. It's fitted in a corner of the garden on the north side of the house. Okay, that's not ideal because it's not the warmest point, but actually it doesn't seem to be making an appreciable difference. It's still working very efficiently. It shouldn't be near a window, and you can see there it's up against the fence and a blank wall, but in fact it's very quiet, and the living room next door to it, you can't hear it at all. All the systems are connected through the internet, so I've got lots of apps that control through My Energy for the solar, the heating system through the cloud. Solax is the battery management system, and also the thermostat control. It can all be done from my smartphone. And all the data that was generated, I recorded during the lockdown periods daily, so I have very good data over a 2 or 3 year period. So as I mentioned, the battery is a manageable one, so I can set the times when it is charging it. I can do that twice a year with the Solax system, twice a day with the Solax system. So I can fill the battery in the winter at night using cheap electricity, and then that will discharge during the day. I can also recharge my electric vehicle at night, and Octopus give me a very cheap rate to do that because I'm an EV owner. In the summer, I charge the EV from solar. On my mobile thermostat, I can set my room temperatures up to 4 times a day. So I can have it cooler at night. I keep it about 17 degrees at night and then 19 degrees in the day. So it's a much more uniform temperature, and the house is kept within that boundary of, it should be within 3 degrees over the 24-hour period. That's the way that an air source heat pump is best managed. So you have a much more uniform temperature within the house. It's not fluctuating. And the temperature that's circulating through the radiators, it varies depending on the amount of energy that the air source heat pump is putting into the building, and it's extracting the energy from the outside air and pumping it into the house. But the radiator temperature will vary from maybe 30 degrees up to 45 degrees. And this is on a compensation curve. I can adapt that, I can change it on the control system. But it seems to be working pretty well for me. So I've collected the daily data, plus also outside temperatures from a neighbour's weather station, which is fairly reliable. It correlates with Washington National data temperatures. In the background, my house, I reckon, is using about 8 kilowatt hours per day when there's no heating on. So that's all the appliances, your hot water, your fridge, your freezer, the appliances, now my induction hob, the oven, the microwave, and so on. The hot water system does have immersion heater for Legionnaires protection. So that comes on once a fortnight to make sure there's no Legionnaires in the whole system. But otherwise, the air source heat pump is doing the work. So as you'd expect, the colder it is, the more heating is required into the house. And here, this is for 1 year, I've got the average external temperature along the x-axis, and it goes down to an average daily temperature of -3. And you can see that the kilowatt hours put into the house goes up to, say, 160 per day. So that's not what's consumed, that's what's put into the house from the air source heat pump. Now, the other factor of an air source heat pump is it's not the same efficiency. It changes with the air temperature outside. So when it's colder, it's less efficient because it's trying to extract energy from a cold air temperature. So down at -3, it was a coefficient of performance of 3, but I'm getting an average over the year of 4, and you can see when it's warmer, it's up near a 5. So my COP, coefficient of performance, is averaging over the winter about 4. If you put those two factors together, this is the actual energy used. So the air source heat pump is using 50 kilowatt hours per day when it's very cold, and that will fluctuate maybe up to 60 or so when it's very cold. But when it's mild, it's running down towards 0. I've been logging this for a number of years now, and I'll continue over the next few winters to see if there's any change in the performance of the air source heat pump. For instance, if I maybe notch the temperatures down 1 degree or so, does that have an effect? So here's a picture in that very cold period a couple of years ago. We had snow drifts coming in, and the air source heat pump worked perfectly well. You can see on the right the grill at the back was frosting up, and what it does, it senses this and it just reverses the whole system. So it then pumps the hot water through those pipes and defrosts itself. So it manages all that internally. So coming back to comparison with the gas system, the electricity used and consumed versus the hot water and heating. So the gas is the grey vertical bars, as seen before, and the orange line is what the air source heat pump is estimating it's putting into the house. This is based on the flow temperatures and the flow rate. And you can see in the summer, obviously the heating is off, but in the winter, it's coldest in January, February, March, and so more energy is being pushed into the house. And the blue line lower down is the actual electricity consumed to do that. So that's a true figure. And you can see the two systems are matching fairly well, that the amount of energy that the house requires to be heated is similar under the gas and the air source heat pump systems. A couple of other graphs. This is my electricity demand. So I'm generating the blue line. Obviously, it's a lot of generation in the summer when I don't need it. And so I need to sell that back to the grid. In the winter, I have a big demand, and basically the solar systems can't cope, so I have to import electricity. Electricity prices have gone up, so you say, well, is it worth it? This is where the batteries come in. I can store a lot of electricity overnight at cheap rates and then release that during the day. And of course, the solar fluctuates day by day. Get a cloudy winter day, you get virtually nothing. And then a nice crisp cold day in the winter, and you can generate a reasonable amount. It does contribute, but in the winter the solar system isn't really giving anywhere near enough to run the air source heat pump. So on the tariffs I'm on Octopus. In the winter I'm on Octopus Go. This is it's a tariff designed for electric vehicle owners. And it gives a cheap rate for 4 hours at 7.5 pence per kilowatt hour. I can export, but not at a very good price, only about 4 pence per kilowatt hour, because you can't have your cake and eat it. They don't give everything away. But in the summer, from June to September, I'm on Octopus Agile for export, and this could give me higher prices, although this year it might have been better to be on a fixed tariff. I'm still weighing that up. I'll see what happens over the summer. We've had a very windy day last weekend, and in fact, Octopus were paying people to use that energy on Sunday. So in the summer, the car, the hot water, and the house are all on the solar. The heating is off, and I'm using the battery storage in filling the battery during the day, and then using that in the evening for cooking, for fridges, freezers, etc. Of course, energy prices peaked a year ago, and they've come back down again, but they're still higher than they used to be. But you can see electricity is about 3 times more expensive than gas. But this is where the air source heat pump comes into its own, because for every kilowatt hour that it consumes, it pushes 4 times that into the house on average. So, okay, less in the coldest times. But I've invested that £15,500 in the solar and batteries, and that £14,500 in the air source heat pump. So what's the payback now is the question, really. I think for the air source heat pump, because I was lucky enough to get the RHI subsidy and I needed a new boiler anyway, that's pretty much paid for it. I don't really have to take that into the equation. But electricity now for July with Octopus, if you were buying that on a tariff, it would be about 30 pence per kilowatt hour, and gas 7.4, which is a ratio of about 4.1. So the 3 to 4 is obviously the ratio that seems to be happening at the moment. So that's why I think the battery is so helpful to manipulate the costs and keep it down. So using my 2020 data, gas alone would have been costing, for the 21,500 kilowatt hours at the 7.4 pence, would have been costing me £1,600 a year. Plus some electricity, another £600, so £2,200 per year if I was on the old, stayed on the old system. For 2023, so excluding government's subsidies and cold winter payments, I'm importing 1,800 kilowatt hours at the higher price on my tariff of 38 pence. And that's costing me nearly £700 per year. And I'm importing 3,200 kilowatt hours at the lower price, £240. So the weighted average I'm paying is only 18.5 pence. The solar generation is, as I said, nearly 7,000 kilowatt hours per year, and I'm consuming about 45% of that. So at the 38 pence, that's sort of saving me £1,200. I'm also selling the excess, and over the year that's averaging about 10 pence. So that's another income of 380 odd pence this year. So the net outgoing cost is to pay for the grid is £542. So I'm saving £1,500 or more a year. So my payback has now come back down. Instead of being 11 years, it's reducing to 9 years. I'm already 3 or 4 years into it. Prices are still increasing, so my payback might end up being, say, 8 years. So I'm quite pleased with that. On the carbon side, okay, the grid is being decarbonised, got more wind and solar going in, but UK does import some gas, so prices are going to probably go up still. But the carbon emissions I have saved is about equal to a return trip to Australia. Some people do have concerns about the embodied carbon and the recycling aspects of solar panels and batteries, but okay, that's an issue we have to look at. I'm not an expert in that area, but I'm sure there is a debate on the subject. So in summary, I've changed my energy use away from gas to electricity, and I use my electric car as much as possible. I've reduced my carbon footprint by fitting solar panels and batteries, using off-peak electricity, and controlling my energy costs by switching tariffs when I can. I've reduced the impacts of increasing energy prices, and I believe after 9 years, I will have achieved payback. So thank you for listening. I hope you make the change. On the Martlesham Heath website, we've got a lot of information that you can all access, including the data that I've presented today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. So thank you, Phil, and thank you for agreeing to answer some questions. I know we've got some on the webinar. But let's start with a question from the auditorium, if we can. Happy to take one from wherever. This gentleman.
Yes, both for home use and also when I act as treasurer for our church, we use the building twice a week, effectively 2 mornings a week. What kills us there is the standing charge, because that's daily.
Yes.
It's more of a statement than a question, but do your figures effectively include the standing charge, or do they exclude that and just have your usage amount?
I was comparing the usage and excluding the standing charge. That standing charges have increased quite dramatically as well, haven't they? in this talk, I just wanted to compare the actual gas versus electricity usage.
So how much would your annual standing charge be on the gas which you've now disconnected, or have you?
I think it's now around 40 pence a day, and it was a lot less than that 5 years ago.
Okay.
It's probably doubled.
£120 a year extra. If you
120, you say?
get rid of one of your feeds.
Yeah. Mark?
We have a number of questions, if that's okay. So Alex Wood asks, what's the buffer tank for?
I think it is to make the response time shorter. So when the thermostat says I need to warm the house now, the buffer tank can just release that into the radiator straight away without the air source heat pump having to heat all that water first. So it's to give you a faster response.
Okay.
Can I add to that? Just to say,
Yeah.
I've got exactly the same heat pump that Phil has got.
Just
Sorry.
speak up a bit. That's all.
So it's Dave Green. I'm from Marcham Heath as well, and I've got exactly the same heat pump, although it is a slightly bigger one, which is another source of debate. And I haven't got a buffer tank, and my coefficient performance is averaging around 300% or 3 compared to your Ford. And we think that is largely down to the installation of a buffer tank, because it kind of smooths out, so the heat pump doesn't go on and off as much. We think. I don't know whether I can afford to do the experiment and put it in, because it costs about £2.5 grand to put one in.
Yeah, fitting systems retrospectively is not such a good idea.
More questions from the auditorium. John,
Bill, have you worked out what
speak up a bit.
have you worked out what the efficiency loss is by having your panels facing east and west compared to south?
I haven't worked out that number. One of my neighbours has the data, so it's something we could collate. He is facing purely south, and I've got east and west. He has fewer panels than me, basically. So it's not one to one. Yes,
Compare the ratio, couldn't you?
yes, we could. So it might be.
The web suggests
80%.
80%.
Yes,
and
I was
just
going to say
wondered if that was
80%.
valid or not, really.
Yeah, we could do that. Could do that comparison, but I would guess at about 80%. Yes.
Mark, another one.
Another one from Alex, who asks, why does the air source heat pump need an even temperature in the house over the whole day?
It's a benefit to have a more uniform temperature. I think it's because it's running at a lower circulation temperature. So if you let the house cool down, say by 10 degrees, it's going to take a long time to catch that up, the deficit, to get it back up to your 18, 19, 20 degrees that you want to have in the house. So it's a good system where you're in the house a lot of the time, the family's in the house, and you're trying to keep the house at a more uniform temperature. If you're out of the house all day and just there for the evenings, and then it's off again in the night, and then it's just back on for breakfast time, maybe the gas system is the better system, but for a family situation, I think when you're in the house all the time, or you're retired like I am, you want a more uniform temperature in the house. So having that sort of that more constant temperature system is good.
And related to that, somebody on the chat has said, if you were much more sedentary, I'm thinking old age, and you needed the temperature in the house to be much warmer, say 23, 24 degrees, would the heat pump be able to keep up? And would you expect the COP to remain roughly the same?
I'm sure that the heat pump would manage that perfectly well. In the design, you'd have to make sure that parameter was put in, that your target temperature was going to be 23 degrees. But my target temperature was going to be 20 degrees. Therefore, the size of the heat pump was what it was. If you're trying to heat the house 3 or 4 degrees warmer, then you might need a bigger air source heat pump.
More questions from the floor?
Insulate.
One from here.
What's the maintenance of a heat pump like, and the expected sort of lifetime for it to replace it? The maintenance, I've had to do nothing, but the engineer comes round once a year just to check it. That's partly for the Renewables Heat Initiative. It has to be verified that it's working and doing its job, basically. They've not had to do anything to it apart from checking it over. I've had very, very minor things which they've corrected under the guarantee, like a little valve was buzzing, so they changed that. Nothing major has happened in the last 3 years. So, okay, it's sort of guaranteed at least 10 years, I believe. So I think it will last longer.
So,
Mark, a question from the
following on similar vein, Shane asks, does your payback timescale include maintenance, repairs and replacement at the end of life?
No, that is a question to be looked at. At the moment, I've had no maintenance costs. Yes, how long will it last? It's the same with a boiler. When you put a gas boiler in, they don't last that long. I'm hoping my air source heat pump, because it's just like a glorified fridge, will last quite a long time. Similarly, solar panels should last a long time. They may lose a little bit of efficiency, but I don't think, you know, they're going to be, in my lifetime, be changing.
question at the back.
Yeah, it's the temperature at night, which I think you said was 17, was it? It's just I'm a bit surprised because my heating system's been since 20 years, and it's set to off at night, but controlled by temperature. So if the temperature falls by to below 16, and it come on again. And it's never fallen below 16. So if you've got you're expecting it to fall by 10 degrees, there's something very wrong with the insulation in the house.
Yeah, no, it's the thermostat is set at 17. So if it did fall below 17, the heating system would come on. But you know, my house is well insulated, so
it never comes on at night.
It may come on at about 6 in the morning, but overnight it doesn't come on. No.
I think I know the answer to this one, but what's the difference between the conventional radiators and the air source heat pump ones? Is it just they're bigger?
Yes, because the circulation temperature is lower, you need adequately sized radiators to push that heat into the rooms. And half of my radiators were perfectly okay, but because they were originally designed for a gas system, when the house was not insulated, a lot of the radiators were, you know, big enough, but some of them did have to be increased.
Okay.
Question from Kevin.
Yeah. I'm interested in the forced charging. How do you decide how many hours to force charge during the night versus the daytime ability for the solar to charge the battery?
Yeah.
Is there kind of, with the app, is there a link to a weather system that tells you it's going to be sunny or it's not going to be sunny, and yeah, you've got to force charge 3 hours instead of 1 hour? How do you balance that?
My system is fairly simple. I believe there are systems and people trying to do that, but my system is simple because I've got the air source heat pump, and in the winter it's maybe using 50 kilowatt hours. My battery is only 12.5 kilowatt hours, of which maybe 11 is usable. So in the winter, it's down to 0 by the evening, and so I fill it up full, and then it discharges in the morning, and then okay, I'm importing electricity during the day when it's very cold. The balance time is sort of spring and autumn, and I keep topping the battery up even in April and May, and then in June, then I totally switch to my summer system.
Thank you.
So following on from that, if I can, you said the capacity of your battery is 12.5 kilowatts, but what type of battery are you using?
Well, it's a Solax battery. It's a
Lithium-ion.
lithium-ion battery. There are two of them. I don't drop them down below 90%, and it all works automatically. So,
Mail? Go on. We have another question. Have you had any experience of your air source heat pump acting as an air conditioner in hot summers? Does it work and is it cost effective?
my system could be changed to a cooling system. I think that's what the question is. So you could reverse the pump so that you're pushing cold air through your radiators, and the system could do that. But I was I just opened the windows, and B, I think there is some risk of damp with condensation perhaps forming when it's a hot, humid day. So I was warned it's not really necessary, and you might cause yourself problems.
Can I add to that? Yeah, just to say, before I had my air source heat pump installed, I went to sort of halfway house. So I put a 6 kilowatt two units, one in the lounge, one in the dining room, 6 kilowatt air conditioning unit, which does heating and cooling. So I was able to not use the gas central heating during the day because I just put those on basically downstairs.
So it's an air source heat pump.
So it's an air source heat pump, exactly like the same, which can do heating, which is what ours, the main one, does through the radiators, but it's air to air. So it can do air conditioning as well. So air to air heat pump technology. Traditionally, people use it as cooling, but you can get them as heating as well. So I was using it heating in the winter, and the advantage, I suppose, is a bit of an advantage in terms of they're really cheap. It's like $2.5 grand to put 6 kilowatts in, as opposed to I paid 15,000 for mine, less the grant, so 10,000. They're going up in price since Phil bought his. But I'm still using the gas boiler as well, and then you've got standard charge and something, and you're still burning gas and giving out carbon. So eventually I bit the bullets and bought them.
The air-to-air system might be beneficial for some older houses where they don't have radiators. Maybe they've got oil. So a smaller air-to-air system and heating a couple of rooms that you're living in.
You're getting the same COP. You're getting about 300% at least efficiency.
Another question from the back, Dave.
Yeah, I've got an older house, 1928 house, so it's probably not as well insulated as yours. I've got micro-bore radiator, which is a problem, I know. But I've got solar panels, had solar panels for 11 years. I'm at the point of thinking about batteries. I don't know whether can they work, do they fractionally charge? Or is it simply a 3 kilowatt charger that's either on or off? Because I've been puzzling, how do they work if you want to charge on your spare solar in the day? Can you charge 1.2 kilowatts into a battery, or is it 3 kilowatts or nothing?
Well, the battery takes any excess that the house isn't using and charges the battery first, and then it exports to the grid, and I get paid for that.
Is that because your panels are wired into the battery first, or is it DC coupled or AC coupled?
I can never get it right way around.
Because DC coupled, I think that's the way to go, because I think that you automatically get a fractional charge. You only charge the battery with what the solar produces.
You definitely can do that.
Yes.
I haven't done it. Only that a friend of mine who had panels has had the battery to put. Just bought a 10, 12 kilowatt battery and put it in, but I haven't asked him how it all works. It's just, but that once again just takes the excess charge. And to give you some idea of what he was saying is when he was using the power from the roof, with nothing else, he was covering about 30-35% of his own use came out of that. When he got his battery, and that jumped closer to 68-70% of the electricity he used himself.
So on our website, we do have an example of an older house with an air source heat pump, but he may have had the larger bore pipes. We'd have to check on the website.
My installer, PPH in Ipswich, I asked that question because I know it's an issue my son's got, microball in Keswick, and they said probably not a problem, just the pump needs to be able to get the flow. But and I guess that you need a bigger pump.
Yeah.
Well, they reckon it wasn't a problem, microball. So you don't have to reach
Well,
that's not the end of the world to put new pipes.
No,
in.
no, I guess not. But,
Okay.
but you need to get the flow. You need to, it's a lower temperature flow, so you want to get the reasonable flow.
Another question from the webinar.
Wondering which one to go with. Will the next step be for vehicle to grid?
Well, there's vehicle to home, which is an option. The inverters are still quite expensive. They are available around the world. I think in Denmark and America they have them, but they're expensive. So vehicle to home sounds quite interesting because your vehicle, is sitting there, and you can charge it cheaply at night and then use it. Vehicle to grid, I think in the current systems that they're testing, you're basically giving someone else control of your car battery, which I'm a bit reluctant to do.
Thank you. Got another one?
One more from webinar, one more from the back. One more from webinar first.
Air source heat pump is ideal for underfloor heating or skirting heating due to the large surface area, though obviously difficult to retrofit. How much bigger in comparison were your old and new radiators?
I would have liked underfloor heating, but as you say, retrofitting that is very expensive. A lot of my old radiators were single panel without any corrugations on them. So I think the 6 that I did change were changed to double the output.
Yeah, mine was single to double, so
yeah,
same sort of
same sort
area,
of,
but
yes,
deeper,
yeah.
slightly deeper.
And at the back.
It's just an observation with the battery technology, assuming it's going to improve no end still. Will there come a point where it'd be cheaper in the design to just go with a completely DC system, forget about trying to export it back to the grid with an AC 50 cycles or so, 50 hertz?
What I would like, my battery system could power me. There's the Powerwall systems which can be off-grid. So people out in the countryside in some parts of the world have a totally off-grid system. Mine could be, but it would only power a few sockets like the fridge and the freezer and maybe a couple of lights, and you'd have to have a dedicated system for my battery to do that, to make it last long enough. It wouldn't power the heating system, it wouldn't be man enough. You'd have to have huge batteries to do that. But yeah, a battery system off grid is technically possible, yes.
With the Tesla Powerwall is off grid, they put in an extra earth spike, and so if you get a blip, I mean, we've had power outages at Marsham Heath, which I've never known about because Powerwall just keeps it going.
I was trying to think what actually devices that in the home actually need AC now, apart from heating.
Any more questions?
We have
one more.
We have
final.
Which one should we have? Precious. Does the annual heat pump investigation involve inspecting anything inside the house or just the external pump?
I think they check the blind.
Oh, is that the annual inspection?
Yeah.
They just check the heat pump is working correctly and that the control systems are all working. I had an engineer around a couple of days ago because I wasn't quite sure if it was working as I wanted it to. So they're quite happy to come around and check that and make sure that
so they're coming in the house to look at the control, or the garage to look at the control system.
At my request, yes.
Right,
yeah. And I think the installers have been very good. They've looked after me very well, and I've had quite a good package, basically.
Yeah, get an MCS accredited installer.
Yes.
Any further questions from the floor here? One for this gentleman. Final question.
Yes, thank you very much. My question is about security of the system. This is separated from smartphone. Yeah, you can. Does it protect from hacking? Because if someone smart guy will connect to your system, he can vulnerate anything.
Well, maybe a lot of systems are open to hackers, but hopefully my system isn't. I don't think they'd be too interested in me.
I was going to say, why would somebody want to do that?
I can control my home from here if I wanted to and change the heating and everything. But yes, someone could probably easily hack it and change it.
You need public static IP address, yeah?
Sorry,
You need the public static IP address, yeah? To operate it.
I guess so. It's not my field.
No, I don't think so. I think the approach they use is a server done in the cloud. Sorry, it's done in the cloud, I think. So the various apps will connect to the cloud, and they will connect to the cloud. So you don't need a static app.
So I think I'm safe.
Well, thank you very much, Phil, for a very interesting presentation and for engaging the audience on the webinar and in the auditorium here so well around the Q&A. So thank you for a first-rate talk, and can we all thank Phil in the normal way? Can you click it on then? There we go. Thank you for your attendance. I'd just like to draw your attention to an event that we're running on the 13th September. I did mention this one earlier. It will be Green Forum Colloquium. It will be at the Digitech Centre in Adastral Park. So for those of you who want to go back to Marcham Heath, Adastral Park, that gives you an opportunity. You can book your place directly on that. You can find that on our NGEX site. We will have panel sessions and keynote presentations. We will have posters. We will have the opportunity to network with other people who are interested in getting to net zero. And we will have visits to the University of Suffolk Eco House. So thank you very much again, Phil. And we hope to see and hear from the audience, both in face-to-face and online in the near future. Thank you very much.